Once I see for sure that it's working on the feed, then we'll go ahead and start introductions here.
Looks like a nice day in Nevada.
It's a nice sunny day.
Yeah, it's sunny here too, and the snow's melting. You guys must have gotten snow too.
We had a beautiful snow yesterday morning when we woke up. The trees were like winter wonderland.
Like Christmas Eve.
And it does look like the feed's working fine on my cell phone. The computer's being silly for some reason, but that brings us probably to today's discussion on reliable broadband. So welcome everybody this morning and those watching online. Again, like last week, if you have questions, make sure to type those in the box. We'll get to those. If there are questions that are not related to fiber, we'll save them for the end. And if we have time, then Councilwoman Ehrig and I will answer some of those for you. So to get started, we'll go ahead with some introductions so everyone can get an idea for who is here on the line today. But my name is Brett Barker and privileged to serve as your mayor here in the city of Nevada. Probably go to Sandy next, then we'll have our MetroNet friends go ahead and introduce themselves.
Sure, Sandy Ehrig and City Councilwoman for the city.
Hi, my name is Joe Salerno. I am the market manager for MetroNet in the state of Iowa.
Hi, I'm Dan Casciato. I'm the government affairs person for the state of Iowa. Metro.
And good morning, everybody. My name is John Story, and I'm the project manager for Ames and Future for Nevada.
Awesome. Well, I know folks saw some of our announcements earlier on Facebook after our council meeting earlier in the week. So maybe if we can start off with just who is MetroNet, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say I'll touch it. I'll start things off. Just want to thank the City Council, Mayor Barker, and the entire City Council, the Public Works team, Rick Martinez, as we work through the franchise to get it done. You know, we're moving at a fast pace here in Iowa, and to work with you guys and to we got the information back and forth. We scheduled the meeting. I mean, with everything going on in the world, there's never been more of a need for high-speed internet and to future-proof communities and homes. And it was just a pleasure working with you. And I think, you know, testament to myself being on the call, John Story on the call, Dan Casciato on the call. You know, we're a team that's going to be here for the long haul. I mean, we're going to build this. We're going to be here afterward, you know, before, during, and after. And that's why I wanted the three of our associates on the call for this. But basically what I told you in city council meeting, I mean, you know, MetroNet's been around for 15 years. We're in 8 different states, 84 communities. Company started out by, working in rural areas to get service, to get, you know, internet, fiber to some communities rural, and saw a business in this. It went from the rural, then we started going through Indiana. So, you know, this is our first rodeo. We've been doing this for 15 years. We're in 80 plus communities. We're in 2 communities in Iowa right now, in Bettendorf and Davenport. We're building out Ames right now, soon to be Nevada. We're in Chicago, Kentucky, Florida, Minnesota. So we've been around. We have tremendous financing. And, you know, the goal is to future-proof communities, to put people, you know, I always say, you know, with everything going on, I think that the Zoom meeting right now is testament to the need. I mean, here we are, kids are schooling, obviously. So you go to a home now where it used to be maybe people would get on and you know, download at night and maybe use the internet at night. And now everybody's home. We're doing schooling. We might have 2 parents who are working. You're downloading, you're uploading. And so, you know, we've taken this business model and, you know, obviously we're more popular than ever right now because there's been strain on some of the, you know, infrastructures of the legacy systems that are in there right now. So imagine our phones have been, you know, ringing off the hook. But basically, in a nutshell, that's what it is. I mean, we're a company of associates who are dedicated to this process. The customer is number one. And I was on a call, I always joke, on Thursday for an hour and a half going over what's called the Net Promoter Score. And basically what we do is we have metrics that we gauge ourselves in the community. How are we doing door-to-door sales? How are we doing with installation? How are we doing with construction? How do we compare to the competition in the marketplace? So, you know, what gets measured gets results, and we measure a lot of things, and our success shows it. So I could go deeper into it, but the reality was to future-proof communities and to do things other companies weren't willing to do. We're going to come into your town and we are rebuilding it. Same as the cable companies did 35 years ago, we're coming in and putting fiber throughout the entire community. So won't be as long of a process as you think, but we're going to be there. You'll get some phone calls because this hasn't been done in a while where we've been in private easements or public easements. So you'll get some calls, but we're here to respond. John is here, Dan is here, I'll be here. So in a nutshell, that's MetroNet. Been around a long time and looking forward to working with you guys.
Joe, hey, John, can you explain a little bit more about, because our technology is a little different than symmetrical nature of our technology, and just a brief summary of, what exactly on the technology side, what we are?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Oh,
I'm not the expert. I build it, but
Yeah.
But this is glass. So, the one thing, and I try to keep it as easy to understand as possible, is that, with glass fiber, everybody has their own light wave. You don't share with anybody else on the network. So whatever package you decide to purchase, whether it be 100 megabytes or 200 or a gigabyte, that is yours, and you're going to test, and you're going to be at those at all times, no matter what time of the day, no matter what time people come home, and everybody gets on. You're going to maintain that purchase.
what John's saying is, and we are a symmetrical system. So if it's 100 meg, it's 100 meg down, 100 meg up, 200 meg down, 200 meg up, 500, 1,000.
On the text.
More and more, you're getting homes that are becoming.
Get your phone so I can text.
Yeah, more and more, you're getting homes that need more bandwidth up in addition to down, where they're having the cameras, security cameras hooked up, or they're working with, more and more data that needs to go up. And as John pointed out, it's not sharing that bandwidth with a node with many other your neighbors.
Now I'll ask one question, and then I know Sandy has a bunch of good ones lined up too, so we'll probably alternate questioning so she can think of the next one. But I'm sure we have some folks watching right now that are even asking, what is fiber? So maybe if we can go way back to the basics, talk about what that is and what that means. I think that might help folks understand a little bit too.
So
John, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that all the time I spent in the military, I always used the KISS, and so I want to keep it really simple. Okay, so as opposed to cable type systems or phone line systems where copper is being used to transmit the internet, phones, lines, TV. We use glass. The what am I trying to say? The important thing about glass is, like I said, it's a light wave. So you can put multiple light waves on one piece of glass and therefore have many customers on glass. So we're able to build with a smaller impact in communities without great big huge cables running through the grounds or on the telephone poles or wherever it is. We're able to build, like we can build all of Nevada, I think, with a 144 count fiber to get it to Nevada. And then we can build all of Nevada off of 144 count fiber. Obviously you have more homes than that, but that's the value of what fiber does in a kind of a nutshell. But again, that wavelength that every homeowner has, nobody gets to impact that. So I don't know if that's simple enough.
Yeah, and I think it's compared to a prop plane to a jet. I mean, the prop plane will get you to LA, but you may start in Chicago and you stop in Omaha, stop in Vegas. You'll get there, but it might break down. With the legacy systems, it's copper fittings. There's leakage. What John's saying is it's glass. I mean, it's the future. It's a supersonic jet. It's a piece of glass. There's no degradation. And again, as they pointed out, you're not sharing. You're getting your own network up to a gig, your own dedicated network. You're not sharing. In the past, you'd come home at 5:30, all of a sudden it's harder and harder to download things because the kids are playing games, people are on the internet. Never affected. And like Dan said, we do symmetrical up and down. We have, no, as far as no data caps. You can stream as much as you want. Some of the legacy systems will come in, they'll cut you, or they'll charge you more after a terabit. We don't do that because we don't have to. Because, you're not taxing our network by using everything, using the internet that you're using. You can use it to your heart's content.
Mayor, another question that comes up with homeowners is they say, hey, well, I'm worried about that electricity going through the fiber, that your lines. There is no electricity going through the lines. It's light, as John pointed out. We're not broadcasting any kind of signal out of our network. This isn't 5G. This is just, light going through fiber to a home, providing internet access for your internet, for your television, or for your telephone. It's not broadcasting. We don't have broadcasting towers where we're emitting, broadcasting signals. We're not doing anything like that. It's just light going through the fiber. So you can't get electrocuted from the light. That's what I'm saying. And it comes up occasionally comes up. Somebody said, hey, I'm concerned about the electricity in there. No, there's none. It's light.
So Joe, you've mentioned other communities that you're working in, Bettendorf, Davenport, and Ames, all much larger than Nevada. So we feel quite privileged. So tell me about how you just determined that Nevada would be a good fit for your company.
Well, I think every community, especially neighboring communities to where we're building now, could potentially be a good fit. How this came about is, I was sitting down with John and we were talking. We're looking at the map, and we're looking at expansions, and we saw the drawings. We saw where Ames is. We, believe it or not, our CEO is driven through your community in Ames. We'll go into areas that might be bigger, and we'll drive around and see neighboring communities. And, you think about this is how the company started. They started providing into areas that never would have received this technology. So we think everybody could potentially be a market, and happened to be in Ames, drove through it. John and I looked at the map. Can we get across there? We sort of heard through the grapevine that you were investigating this, and there was some frustration that some said 10 years out. It would be a piecemeal, 1 year at a time. And we're not going to do that. We come in, we build it. We'll build this thing in 6 months. You'll probably see customers on board October 1st to maybe around October 15th. And John's going to kill me because it all depends on getting permits and Mother Nature, of course. But to answer your question, Councilwoman Sandy, it was, we were in the area. We have obviously a system right there in Ames, and we think it's a great community, and it fits what we could do there to be successful. So we're thrilled to be here.
Great, thank you.
And that was definitely an exciting conversation to have. As you mentioned, we've been working on fiber for a while. It's definitely been one of my primary goals working for, because I know how important it is for the community. And I hear every day folks asking for other options for faster, more reliable internet. So I think the more we can provide that, the better. And then especially then, since our initial discussions, obviously the world has changed. And I think that makes it even more important, as was mentioned earlier. I think this will change the way America works forever. And I think this will put Nevada in a really strong position as working from home and telecommuting rates probably skyrocket as people figure out how well it works and in different situations. So maybe I'm sure, I think I heard Joe earlier say future proof. So maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of what that means for a community.
Basically what it means is, right now it's some of your legacy, you're kind of limited. If 4G is coming out as far as, television shows, as far as future proof. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know exactly whether technologies are coming out there, but we're confident that what we're going to provide with a piece of glass to each resident's home, potentially, there'll be enough fiber there as far as available for a long, for generations, hopefully. And maybe John could speak a little more to that as far as the technology compared where you are now with some analog as opposed to fiber.
Yeah, when we come into a city or a town where we we build to a certain capacity. So we go in knowing that, what it is today isn't what it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now. So we build at about 30% capacity. So you have another 30% that you can build, and still we have the capacity to build Nevada another 30%. Before we'd have to upgrade, maybe get some more fiber in, or do whatever we needed to do. But so for probably the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the capacity is there to just let Nevada keep expanding.
Well, I know that we have a number of citizens probably watching and listening to this conversation, and they're probably very curious about, the rollout, kind of the time frame, as well as the cost to the residential customer. So any information from the perspective of our citizens would be helpful.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the rollout real quick, when permitting and I mean, we're getting ready to go with the ring right now, the fiber ring that'll go around the community. We're waiting on permits. John and I talked yesterday, but I'll let him touch on the construction process, and I'll talk a little bit about pricing and things of that nature.
Thank you.
So I have a temporary schedule that I've laid out for right now. But there's one caveat, and the one caveat is pole applications. I can come in, I can get all the underground built, and I will fairly fast, but it's waiting for the pole applications in town in order to get all the fiber on the telephone poles in town. But with that being said, I just put a 6-month time frame on it. And so this, I'm sure it's going to get done faster than this, but so right now I have scheduled that all the underground, basically I could have done by 7/27. That's a realistic guess right there, but I think that's pretty fast. And then the aerial, since I can't start for 6 months, which means I can't even start it till around September, towards the end of September. But with that being said, I think I can still have it in by the end of October. I mean, it's amazing how fast the work goes once I get the applications back. So with that being said, then we pick 3 homes in Nevada, and we do a test bed, right? And make sure the system is working 100% and all those things. So if you looked at October, I'd have to have the month of November to do that test. And then December, we can turn it loose. And that's worst. To me, this is worst case scenario. Be by the end of the year that I can start turning people up. But like I said, that's worst case. Hopefully it goes way faster than that. But poles are always our Achilles heel, getting those permits. Like Joe was saying, only thing I'm waiting on right now is we redesigned the ring to get it to Nevada. And so right now I'm just waiting for my new maps to show up, because I'm going to change them. I'm going to come in from a little bit of the north side of town. But once those are in and I can get permitted, I've got bids already, and we're going to start. I'm hoping I can start in 2 weeks to get the ring over there. So
can you explain the ring, John? Can you explain the ring, what that is exactly?
Well, we have to use rings. That's what we split up Nevada into 6 different maps. So I have to have a main fiber ring, that's our trunk, if you will, going through the town, that all the other maps then get hooked up to this fiber trunk. And then that all goes back, and it's going to come all the way back to Ames. And we're going to service it. Basically what I'm saying, I have to have a hut where all the fibers come back to, and that'll be in Ames. It's not a very big load to add Nevada onto Ames. The hut's big enough, and so that's an easy thing to do. We won't have to build a hut in Nevada.
Very good. And I know, Joe, one thing folks might be interested to know is you're actually based locally. So there is somebody on the ground here running the show locally. So I think that was something that people might want to know. There is a local physical presence here. With that, you did hit on one question that we had coming online, and that is the route from Ames to Nevada and kind of where geographically that main trunk might be coming in.
So right now I have it coming in off of 13th Street in Ames, which I think what's that turn into 620th Street and bring it basically all the way across. And then we'll come in from the north underneath the train trestle there.
Okay.
So that's, and we're basically gonna plow it the whole way, which is gonna be a lot faster than boring or trying to get the pole applications and all that. So I could get that trunk over there and start building the city as soon as possible.
Very good.
So does it go like right away? Is that where it goes?
Yes. So everything we do is either be in a utility easement or a road right of way. We don't do private easement. The only time I can do private easement is if that private property has agreed to an attachment or something like that. Otherwise, I work in utility easements or road right of ways.
Very good. Some of the other questions coming in, what other types of services besides internet do you have, and kind of what does that cost structure look like?
Yeah, basically, we're a full-fledged, all the services that you have for your incumbent provider right now. We have telephone, we have television, and we have internet. So we have the triple play like everybody else. Our television package is pass-through pricing. We don't make a penny on pass-through price on the video side. You pay what we pay, so you can get your basic and your movie channels, ESPN, CNN, USA, Showtime, video on demand movies, whatever your heart's content. So we have television, we have internet, and we have telephone as well. So just what your incumbent. We push the fiber because we think more people are streaming just by our numbers and what's going on. So that is there. So I just want to make sure of that. And as far as pricing, here's one of the things, I've been in the television industry my whole life. There's a saying that the camera never blinks. So anything you say or do is picked up, and it's tough for me to give pricing today in April when we're going to hit in December. And I saw anyone coming back, well, you said in April, but I will tell you a couple of packages we have out right now. And you could go to our website. I always tell people, go to our website. You have, there's a shopping cart there. Everybody's needs are different. If you want telephone, if you want, all three, or if you just want one, shop it yourself. If you're an architect, you might want a gig because you're sending, uploading, and downloading drawings. But we have an offer out right now during the pandemic for students. If you're a student, learning from home, or a teacher, we have a package right now of 500 meg up and down. For the first 2 months, we're giving for free. Months 3 through the next 4 months are $49.95. And then after the 6th month, you could pay $59.95 for that same 500 up and down. Or you could stay at $49.95 and we'll lower you to 100 over 100, which is still a pretty fast speed. If you're not a student, we have a package out right now, or a teacher. It's $49.95 for 200 up and down for internet, 200 up, 200 down, the symmetrical package. So that tells you that now that doesn't include taxes. So there's a few fees in there that we don't have control of, but it does tell you that that's reasonable for $49.95 for 200 up and down. And then if you want TV, and that's where it gets a little complicated. What services do you want? But I can tell you right now, go to your website, go to the shopping cart, and you could, figure out exactly what you need, and all the prices will be shown up there as well.
And the other thing that we don't have any contracts. You're not locked into any contracts with us. So you're free. If you start something, you're free to move around and change things.
And a follow-up question that came in while you were talking is there some sort of a DVR or TiVo type feature so folks can record and rewind their TV?
Yeah, we have wireless boxes, DVRs, auxiliary boxes where, I tell you, I live on a system right now. I'm in my basement, but I've got a wireless box here. I've got a wireless box here and a master box in my room. So I can move the box around if I want to another television. So yeah, we have extenders, anything you're seeing in your legacy systems right now, your incumbent operator, we certainly have.
And what do business services look like? That was another question that came in.
Love it. I'll tell you, it's interesting. I had a meeting on Tuesday, and we were just hiring and I'll use Bettendorf and Davenport as an example. That is just going really, really well. Hiring another account executive in the Bettendorf Davenport area. We thought we were okay with 2, and as these passes, which we call releases of fiber, come out, We have state-of-the-art. I'm as well versed on the business side, but we have telephone services. We have backups. I mean, we have a full, robust suite of services, products and services for business as well. We'll have a dedicated business person just working the city of Nevada. I can assure you of that. So, and we'll, we start pre-selling about 45 days prior to, we call lighting up an area. So, it'll be here sooner than you think, but we'll also come in and survey the area, and people can go online, MetroNetInc.com, if they want to pre-sell right now and want to sign up and see where they're at in the footprint. And we'll have somebody call them as early as next month. Given we already have, I'll tell you right now, we have business contracts done in Ames already, so there's no reason we wouldn't start signing people up in Nevada as well.
And does that include residential customers can go online and pre-sign up now as
Yep.
well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sandy, did you have questions lined up, or you want me to keep going with what's coming in?
Yeah, keep going with what's coming in. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there are some folks watching that live right outside the city limits, and I know our maps that we've seen include our city limits. So are there plans to serve any of those customers, or how would folks that are interested outside of that initial city limit footprint, how would that look like to get them signed up?
Well, what we'll do is light up the first areas as well, because obviously, what we've committed to, we're going to light that up. It's funny, Dan was with me just last month, and we were at a public hearing in Elburn, Illinois, and the exact same thing happened. There were more people who weren't in Elburn from the surrounding areas came to the meeting, and as we were, I felt like the Beatles walking out, because people are asking, when are you coming here? When are you coming over here? So what we will do is we do look at areas out. We call them metro zones. Well, actually not even metro zones if they're not in the original build. But we'll look at areas even outside. I we can't confirm we're going to, actually build there. And it depends on where our ring is. It depends if it makes financial sense to get out there. But, our first focus is literally going to be on what we have in the drawings right now. That doesn't mean later down the road we will at least take a look and annex off those areas if they make financial sense.
Very good.
So Joe, along those same lines, so would that be an area if people have that interest to express that now? If you see a lot, yeah, I would think so too, because we have a lot of residential areas and some commercial actually too outside.
And how would folks go about expressing that interest if they are outside the city limits and are interested in service?
Dan, can they set up a ticket with the request? Can't they go through the ticketing process?
You're dropping off, Joe. I didn't hear you, but yeah.
Can they go through the ticketing process if they're interested in an area that we're not scheduled to build right now?
I would say, they could do that, but basically then John has to deal with that. So I would say no.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're
I'd
right.
rather not. John's going to be too busy, dealing with building the system. So I'd rather not go through the normal. We'll explain the ticketing process, but I'd rather not overburden John with lots of questions. The best way.
Hey, Mayor Brett,
maybe
Rick can keep a list.
Is to reach out to me and Joe with those areas, and then we'll evaluate them. But as Joe mentioned, it all depends. It all depends how far. Does it make economic sense? The areas we're committed to will be in your areas that we call, and everything outside of that is a metro zone, and we have to explore it later.
And we do have a chat box here. So what if Dan or Joe can put some contact information in this box so that folks that are interested in reaching out could reach out with their address so that you can keep track of where there's interest. That
Great.
Sounds like a good solution for now.
You got it.
Sure.
And
go ahead, Dan. Put mine in there.
I don't know where it's at. I'm trying to figure it out.
All right, we'll get to that at the end.
Sounds good, yeah. And the video will stay up saved, so you can add it whenever, and folks can go back and review it and find that contact info. So some other questions is folks are wondering what's involved to set up fiber into a home. What does that process look like? And do they need different equipment such as routers and modems?
I don't have our field ops. We have two departments. One is John does the outside plant, and then we have what's called field ops that does the installation. So It is different equipment. I mean, we don't tap into the existing infrastructure that you have from the incumbent operator there. So we have to, we'll go from what's called a flower pot, and we'll go a line right through, just kind of like the incumbent does. There'll be a line that'll come right through to your house. And then we'll go from inside the house, and we'll basically rewire the same way that the incumbent did. There's as far as the routers and that, what we might do, Mayor Brett, is that might be another call. I mean, we're going to be here for a while, so maybe we set up another call that once we get close to installation, that we could. I'll bring our field ops, person, because I don't want to, speak to things I don't know, but I do know it is different equipment as far as the wiring. You'll need our wiring. Can't use what's in there now. But they do a seamless job. I mean, some of our techs will do 5 jobs in a day, so it's not as arduous as it sounds by having to put new wire in there. But I think we'll do that in maybe 2 months as we get closer, maybe 45 days out. I'll have our Corey, our field ops manager, come on and we'll walk you guys through that whole process.
That sounds good. Yeah, we'd be happy to do a follow-up as it gets closer. I think there'll be more questions in the meantime that folks will have. So I think that'll be a good idea. Another kind of follow-up to that is there a limit to the number? You talked about those wireless boxes. Is there a limit to the number they can have? And I assume that hooks up televisions. Is that how your system works?
Yeah. No, they could have. I believe that. That's a good question now that I think about it. And that might be one for. Because additional boxes, there is some cost in that as well. So I know some homes have 7 boxes. That much I know for sure, because I was on an install early on. They had this big home and they had 7 boxes in there. So but as far as the exact number, I don't think there's a limit, but that'll be for our field ops team as well.
Okay, very good. And somebody asked if there's a tower. So I think maybe explaining kind of what the network looks like. You mentioned underground, you mentioned some of the poles, so maybe just kind of fleshing that out a little bit, what the network looks like.
John, do you want to address that, or you want me to, or?
I'll address it real quick. So we won't have any towers here in Nevada. The only tower we have is to receive local television so that we can capture the local news and those local TV stations, and then we convert it over to fiber. And that'll be done in Ames. So all that information then will be sent to Nevada via the fiber. So I'm looking at available by our designs as of right now. There's 72,000 feet of, sorry, let me take this one off real quick. Not 70, there's 61,000 feet of underground in Nevada. The underground, it's a 2-pipe system. We have one, just like the ring, there's a trunk that runs through the neighborhoods or through these maps. And then each finger of this thing has another fiber count that fires up a terminal box. A terminal box supplies up to 12 homes for one box. So the underground, we have 3 different types of boxes that would have to be set, not in everybody's yards, but along the way. So the first one's the flower pot, like they had mentioned before. One flower pot, it's like a 10-inch round disc. It's about 13 inches tall, and we bury that flush with the ground. All that is for is an access point for the individual homes. Now, one flower pot could possibly serve 4 homes if the backyards back up to each other. If not, it may be 2 homes on the street side if that happens to be where we're going to build on. So it'd be 2 homes, you put it on the property line, split it between the 2 homes, and that would be one. The terminal box is just a little bit bigger. It's about the size of an irrigation box. So it's about 13 by 17, and it's 18 inches tall, but that is also flush. And then what we have to do is we have to make up the fibers. They're not all just contiguous. So we have to have a place that we splice the fibers. So that's a terminal box and then a splitter box, which is taking the fiber and splitting it out. So that box is just a little bit bigger. That's about a 17 by 24, but again, flush to the ground. We have no above ground pedestals for the underground. So everything is flush. And we bore the pipe in between 18 to 24 inches deep so that we can get to it without using backhoes and things like that. That being said, a lot of people have irrigation systems, dog fences, but we hand dig everything. We don't use backhoes. We don't do any of those kind of things. Everything is hand dug. So if you have an irrigation system, we typically want to dig it up and find it so that we don't damage it.
Very good. And a follow-up to that came in is we mentioned the maps. Is there a place that people can find those on your end, or is that something that we should be posting on our end?
There will be on the website. They will, I don't know if they're out there yet, but they will be shortly,
Okay.
Which will show where I'm working at currently. I don't know if it'll tell you that. It'll tell you if I'm starting it. Probably the next thing is going to tell you when I'm done. I don't know if it will tells you if I'm 50% or anything like that, but it'll tell you when I'm starting. But chances are with 61,000 feet, I'll probably start in 2 or 3 of them at the same time, which shouldn't take very long. The aerial, obviously there's about 6 miles. I know that doesn't sound very far, but that's a lot of aerial. But it's not bad. I mean, when my contractors do about 2,500 feet a day, that goes pretty fast, depending on how many crews I have in there. Just for an example, the 61,000 feet here in Ames, I did 24,000 feet last week, and I did 23,000 feet this week. So you can see in 3 weeks, if I had everybody in there, I could do it in 3 weeks and have all the underground done and be gone, you know. But I don't think I'm going to be able to build it as fast as I'm building Ames. I'm going to build both at the same time. The hard part for me is it's the same locators that do both cities. So I'll probably build it just a little bit, and it's still fast. It's like I have one that's 21,000 feet, and it's going to take me maybe 21 days to build that as far as the underground. So that's 2 crews in there doing basically 500 feet a day. And so one map would take me 21 days. Then they just roll into the next one. I have a couple starting on the same day. So be working in 2 of them at the same time. So, but to start, I'm considering starting like 5/1 and be done with the underground hopefully by 7/23.
Okay.
So basically still 2 months.
Yep. So if folks want to see those maps and where the service will be, they can go to the MetroNet website. Is that correct?
Yeah. Here's the thing, Mayor Brett. So if they go to MetroNetinc.com, they click on the construction button. You'll see Nevada. You click on Nevada, and you can literally get to the street. It's based on a Google Maps infrastructure. So it'll say what's future construction, what's under construction, and what's been constructed. So there's color codes on there. They could type in their address and say, okay, we update it on a weekly basis, so they'll be able to kind of keep score as to exactly where we are in the process. So it's a really cool tool to keep track of when we're coming. And I can assure you, we'll let you know when we're close. As far as you'll be getting some letters from us, like pre-sales and things of that nature.
We do a lot of information. There's signs that go into little lawn darts that go into the home near the home. The contractors will have big signs that say MetroNet. It does help us, Mayor, to have, if a homeowner knows about something that is not marked, like a invisible dog fence, or as John pointed out, a sprinkler system. We have, things that we could give them, or if the homeowner could just let us know where these things are, if they're in the easement, extends into an easement, let us know. But as he said, if everything goes right, we'll be in and out of there very quickly.
Very good. And maybe Sandy, if you have any questions queued up you wanted to ask, there's some more technical ones that I might save for a minute, but if you had something you wanted to ask.
Well, I was just curious about who you would see as competitors for your business.
Well,
Who do we see? Well, you have a, go ahead, Dan. You want to?
You have the incumbent cable operator, which I think is Mediacom. You know, you have DirecTV, Dish, but they're really not competitors to us. You know, to be honest, Sandy, most of our customers that take us, that's a time when many people make a change. There's a real change happening across the whole country in terms of how they view. And Joe and I have been in this industry for over 30 years. And they'll make the change when they come to us. The majority of people don't take video. They use Hulu and Netflix and Prime and Disney, and they buy it additionally. So they create their own a la carte package, and they'll take just the basic off airs. And so our competitors are really anybody that provides internet, which would be primarily in your market, I would imagine. Mediacom, I assume AT&T has service, or CenturyLink also, but I'm not particularly, I'm not knowledgeable exactly, but those would be our competitors.
Well, that's helpful because it gets to the point of how this whole business has changed. So I appreciate your comments around that. Certainly, we've all alluded to acknowledging what we've experienced in the last few weeks, and just double emphasis on this need. So I think it's just really critical. It's part of our infrastructure as a city. And I guess I feel really strongly as a council person about moving forward with this project. Like, it's just right in there with electricity and water and sewer and basic infrastructure services today, as we've witnessed. So
absolutely, strong bandwidth is an important integral part of a community growing.
So any other
going through it.
You must not have MetroNet, Dan. You're breaking up.
I have Comcast, and the signal. Unfortunately, this is exactly the problem. I'm sharing my bandwidth with my neighbors, so they must be using a lot of stuff right now.
They're all watching Tiger
That's
King.
The problem.
So some of those other questions that came in, which goes a little bit beyond my own technical understanding, but got a question about an oversubscribed ratio, and then IP4, IP6 with IP translation and dedicated IP. So I'll leave that to the technical experts to wade through those questions. Otherwise, they might be ones we can save for the follow-up we do when it gets closer.
Yeah, that's over my, but you know what? But I do want to, if you'd be kind enough to keep a list of that, and we'll make sure we could speak to that on our next call in a couple months. I don't want to just press that to the side. We certainly, we're here to answer questions. We're going to be here for a long time. So we'll put that on our list of to-dos for the next call.
Sounds good. I know we already talked about saving the talk about modems and routers for when it gets closer too. So I might kick it back to Sandy, see if you had any last questions about fiber you wanted to ask, or if you're watching online, definitely keep sending those in. And any non-fiber questions, we'll let our MetroNet friends go at the end. And if there's time, we'll answer those.
I guess since I brought it up as basic infrastructure, would be, will you meet with the schools and some of our bigger users? How do you work with the kind of institutional users that may have a different need?
Absolutely. In fact, we have in Illinois, we're in 18 communities. I think 15 of the school districts are customers of MetroNet. So there will be a team that will come in and speak to the schools. Obviously, the needs are tremendous there. We'll talk to you guys with your, it's almost like a business sales, it's almost like a business, if you will. So we'll call them, larger scale customers. A lot of city halls we do in the communities we serve. We might be talking to you about, who your provider now and what your needs are, and future-proofing your needs as well. So absolutely, we'll be talking to the school districts, and we have a team that does specifically that.
Great.
Another thing maybe to mention, so I know on the maps there are some areas that currently are, I don't know if excluded is the right word, but I know we've talked about areas that have private owners, like apartment complexes, mobile home parks, So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the infrastructure will go by those properties, and then there will be negotiations with the apartment owners, the mobile home park owners, on whether or not they'll hook up and provide that service to their tenants.
Yeah, so those are private easements. So we'll have to go out and get a UAA, which is utility access agreement, and sit down. So we don't negotiate those through you. We'll have to individually negotiate those with the parties who own those facilities. So we didn't want that stalling the process of all the areas we could go to. So then we make a case by case decision, sit down with the owner, see if it makes sense, see if we can get an agreement signed, and kind of go from there. Do you want to talk about that at all, Dan?
So it sounds like folks who are maybe a tenant of an apartment complex or mobile home park, if they're interested, they need to talk to their landlords, and then it's the landlords will be talking to you to negotiate agreements.
Exactly.
Okay, because I know folks will be looking at the map, and I didn't want them to see their building and wonder what their process is. So I think that'll be helpful for them.
Yeah, my hometown where I'm at in Sugar Grove, we did a deal with the village of Sugar Grove, but we did not do a deal. When I say we, MetroNet, because where I live, what's called Pressbury, is a private community. So that's a separate negotiation. There might be subdivisions within we had 7 subdivisions within Pressbury. So now we had to get a master agreement from Pressbury, and we had to get 7 agreements within homeowners associations within Pressbury, which tells you why we didn't put in the original map. And then, so, there's some, not negotiations, but some conversations and meetings, and have to make sure it makes sense. And, that's a one-off. But certainly, I already talked to Rick yesterday. I said, Rick Martinez, who's your acting city manager, I said, hey, if you get those calls, get a list going, and we'll start, we're going to focus on this major bill that we've approved already, but in concert with that, we want to have those names and access and see where those discussions go as well.
Very good. Yeah, I know accessibility and equity and all those types of properties, I think, are important. So I think that's really good to know. And just knowing how much of it technically, and I don't want to speak for Joe, but when the line already goes by the property, I'm sure it's not that hard to go ahead and hook it in. So, and Sandy, I don't know if folks know, serves on one of the Empower Rural Iowa Task Force. Is that the correct terminology? And I know they deal probably with a lot of these types of issues. So maybe you want to speak a little bit to some of those discussions and how that translates here to what we're talking about today.
Sure, of course. Just a comment. Our governor came out with a program to help rural communities and set out 3 task forces with different issues about a year and a half ago. It's called Empower Rural Iowa. And we have, the 3 issues that came out as, across the board community issues for Iowa. One of them is broadband deployment. So we've had a lot of discussions and experienced, before all this business, we, actually got to see, some telehealth projects and how education was using broadband, and, experience where certainly the needs as well as the issues around it. So, just know there's like 22 people on a task force that have been working on this for a year and a half. So it's very near and dear to my heart that in my own community where I live, that we're actually making something happen. So there certainly is opportunity in our state. There are a lot of independent telephone companies that have done a really good job for their own service territories as cooperatives, but that doesn't mean that there isn't still a lot of need here. So just to express that, and we'll be continuing to work on what does broadband deployment look like, what incentives. Our state legislature has increased a broadband grant program for broadband deployment. So, there's definitely interest at all levels in government and in associations and in private business.
Yeah, I think kind of.
Well, we were on a call last week, and Jeff Ryder from City of Bettendorf brought that up, that he was on that. I believe that might have been the same call in the same meeting, and so we were talking about that as well. And he's like, "Well, in Bettendorf, we are in the process of being a fiber-rich community." So, him and I, we talked about that a little bit as well. Great that you're doing that too, by the way.
Yeah, and I think just some of the case studies, when I think in my head, are just enormous. You think of The telecommuting, we already talked about folks that maybe can live here, but telecommute to Des Moines and not have to drive down there and park and go to a big office tower. Basically takes it nationwide. And just some of the case uses in my own profession is here from our pharmacy in downtown Nevada. We're counseling patients through telepharmacy all across Iowa. So being able to have those services reliable, I think, is a really good example. So some of the other questions happening. So some of these we kind of touched on earlier, the stability of the connection. So, and I know that's so that we can just keep going, because I know Sandy has to hop off at 10, and I know you gentlemen probably do as well. So, with my understanding of fiber, you have that one dedicated line to a home. So that'll help with stability so that your neighbor's Netflix session doesn't affect your own ability to connect. So I'm getting heads nodding. So I think that probably hopefully answers Chelsea's question. And then another question came in, we talked about timeline earlier, but they were looking for a channel lineup. So when do you think the TV channel lineup might be available?
Good question. You know what? We're going to be working, and Dan and myself, with you and Rick and the council, just to keep updating you guys on everything. So, like I said, we don't even have a permit yet. But I love how ahead of the curve, not ahead of the curve, don't want to say that, but you guys are ahead of things now. But let me work on that and see when they're going to have one ready. And as soon as it is, Dan and I will make sure we get you guys one. You can post it on your, on your website and on your Facebook page and wherever else you see fit.
And after
And Mayor, I'll be sending you something in terms of, very shortly, I'll probably do it by the end of next week, sending you something in terms of kind of a question and answer that
Good.
you can post on your site.
Perfect. Yep. So we'll put that out on social media. I also wrote myself a note to find the under construction link that our viewers that are watching this already found that and posted it in the comments. So thank you for doing that. And I'll take that and post that on this city social media so that folks can click on that and poke around a little bit.
Great.
Okay. So we have probably 5 or so more minutes. Are there any final things we didn't cover that you guys think are important for the community to know?
The only thing I would say is only 20% of the community, only 20% of the towns, cities, villages in the country are fiber rich, are future proof. And hopefully by Halloween, Nevada, Iowa will also be that. So, I saw when they were doing the vote, Mayor Brett, I saw the smile on your face when the last yes was announced. And that's what's gratifying about what we do. I mean, that's part of it. Obviously, we want to run a robust business, but to be able to impact people's lives by working together to get this future-proof technology to your community. Sounds corny, but it's really cool. And I'm glad you guys are now going to be part of that 20% in this country.
No, and you hit on that. I was trying not to get too giddy, but when we first started getting hopeful on this, I was making myself not get my hopes up, because this honestly is, fiber community wide has been one of my top couple dream goals. And, obviously one we've struggled to get traction on. So, it was really, really great to be able to know, especially now. I mean, we started having the discussion, and then the need for broadband just skyrocketed because of the situation we're in right now. And, when we'll continue to have those needs increase as we move forward and stuff continues to become more digital. So no, it's
Mayor,
right.
When Dan and I were driving home, I got home after our first meeting back in March, and my wife, "Oh, how did it go in Nevada?" I said, "I think the mayor thinks he's getting punked."
I was waiting for the catch.
Yeah, he just kept looking at us like, "You're really going to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, well, we're good." And then he called me, and I said, "No, and then when I'm pushing the agenda, pushing the timeline, and you're like, 'Yeah, we could do that,' I go, 'I think he thinks he's getting punked, but you're not getting punked. You have a signed agreement from us." And like I said, I talked to John yesterday, and John Story, and he's like, "Yep, we're going to start the ring as soon as we get the permit in the next 2 weeks." I said, "Well, we're living up to our word." And again, you're going to see us. We'll come in probably once every 6 weeks or so during your council meetings, give you guys an update. We're going to be right there. Like I said, John's office, it was a 6-minute drive from where he is in Ames to get to you guys. So again, we're here for the long haul. We're going to tear off the Band-Aid. So the construction is going to come through. It's not going to be a long process. you are going to get some calls. I mean, just because people aren't used, not all, you know, lollipops and gumdrops. People aren't used to people being in their backyards. A lot of people don't know. My wife didn't know it here in Sugar Grove, but we had a MetroNet crew, and she's like, there's people going through my flowers. I said, well, your flowers are in an easement, hon. So we don't own that part. So like Dan said, he's going to get a list of questions. So if people in the office there, if the city's getting calls, they'll know what to say. Here's how you respond to this. We'll guide them to the website. So again, this is going to be teamwork, but we're going to get in and we're going to get out. And once the construction's done, and the construction is going to go well too, but it's really smooth sailing after that.
Very good.
Well, Joe, I'm really glad that you highlighted that 20% factor, because as somebody who's been in economic development, as I have for over 30 years, I know what that really means. When we're trying to attract people to live in our community, to grow businesses here, that is, that's a really important fact. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that took care of the questions that were coming in online. Want to thank everybody for watching. Thank Dan, John, and Joe for joining us. And I think it was a really good discussion. We'll continue to get information out and look forward to doing this again once it gets closer to being live.
Great. Look forward to it, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend. Stay healthy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.